Hello, do you have photographs, newspapers, books, or other documents you would like to preserve for future generations? My name is Samuel Adams Alexander, and I'm the archivist for Charlotte County Libraries and History. In this presentation, I'll be giving a basic introduction to preserving materials such as photographs, books, letters, and newspaper clippings. This will not be an in-depth video, but rather showing what anyone can do on their own. Although photographs may seem very different from newspaper clippings, books, and other documents such as correspondence, many of the same principles apply to all these formats when it comes to the topic of preservation. For instance, you always want to handle them with either clean, dry hands or by wearing microfiber gloves or nitrile gloves. The reason for this is that our fingerprints can carry oils and dirt that can cause chemical damage in the materials we touch. Now, whether or not you want to use just your own hands, but very clean, or gloves, is entirely up to you and what kind of materials you're handling, as sometimes it's better to be gloveless so you have finer dexterity. Now, just as how the methods presented in this video can be applied to different types of media in general, such as books and newspapers, the causes of damage towards these materials also overlap. In essence, there are four factors to be aware about in terms of damage. There's heat, which causes chemical deterioration, humidity, which causes chemical reactions, light, which can cause fading, yellowing, and embrittling, depending on the material, and lastly, pests. So how do archives, such as Charlotte County's, preserve its materials against these factors of heat, humidity, and light? Well, we keep the temperature below 70 degrees Fahrenheit and keep the humidity between 30% and 50%. Although that's not exactly always going to be doable at home. In these situations, the best you can do is store your materials, such as photographs, in archival boxes that are specifically designed to have buffered material, so that way, unlike normal cardboard boxes, they won't damage the materials with the acidic material used. Then with these, whether they be photographs or another material, you want to place them in an interior room or a closet or even a cabinet, as this will most likely be one of the coolest places in your home. One thing you absolutely do not want to do is store them in your attic. When it comes to photographs in particular, it's very helpful to keep them in polyester sleeves or sleeves composed of similar materials. This way, you're not handling them directly and they're not touching other materials directly, as photos and other materials can spread their chemical deterioration, reactions, just chemical damage spreading around. With photographs, you may want to display them sometimes. In this situation, it's best to consider which places you should avoid hanging them. These include exterior walls, locations on walls where there may be sources of heat, such as near a kitchen stove top or near a vent. And if you really want to display those photographs in those locations, you may want to consider getting a duplicate to use instead, as having the photos exposed to the heat of a kitchen or to the humidity of a bathroom can be damaging. Now, the reason why you wouldn't want to expose your photographs on external walls is because not only is there the danger of humidity and the heat, but also the light would be very damaging. Part of the reason why you want to keep your photographs in a preservation box in a closet or cabinet is because even indoors, lightning can be dangerous to your materials. For example, in this room right now, we have 570 lux of light in terms of lux units. Now, let's say you want to keep your photographs together with a letter or a book. In these situations, you want to avoid using run-of-the-mill adhesives, staples, and paper clips. Rather, you want to use stainless steel paper clips or staples, as they will prevent rusting, and rusting can be a major source of damage on these materials. In regards to adhesives, you want to use a specialty adhesive, such as one that can pass the photographic activity test. Just as you want to keep your photographs somewhere cool, you'll want to keep your other materials in a good preservation box in an interior room, closet, cabinet, somewhere where it's nice, cool, and dark. Newspaper clippings in particular need to be handled with care and with as minimal exposure to damaging elements as possible. This is because newspapers, by their design, are very ethereal. They're meant to be disposed, but there's a lot to keep in them. So what can you do? Well, just as I've been saying, you keep them in a cool, low humidity, dark area to minimize the elements from causing any kind of chemical damage. Unfortunately, with newspaper clippings, this still doesn't buy them the most time in the world, as due to the ink on the newspapers. Not only will the newspapers be deteriorating on their own, but if you let them touch other items, those items will suffer staining or other kinds of damages as well. So when it comes to newspaper clippings, you want to separate them through methods such as having them enveloped in a polyester sleeve. Additionally, you want to avoid using adhesives such as tape and glue. And lastly, when it comes to preserving newspaper clippings, you genuinely want to consider digitizing them, as although physical materials are far stabler and have greater endurance than digital items. Newspaper clippings and newspapers as a whole just don't have that quality that photographs and books have. Next, we have paper, just paper documents. Now, paper, when it isn't newsprint paper, can be pretty sturdy, but at the same time, you still want to keep it within cool, low humidity, dark areas when not in use. There is a lot of preservation materials to help you with preserving papers. For example, you already got your usual preservation boxes. But additionally, preservation folders are a lot more accessible for paper documents. Just like the boxes, these are buffered so they have no or low acidity, allowing for the materials in them to be preserved for far longer than if they were. When it comes to preserving books, handling and storage is just as important as the other materials, even though books may be protected by hard covers. For example, when removing a book from a shelf, you do not want to grab it from the top. Rather, you want to reach for the middle of the spine, gently push the neighboring books aside, and firmly yet gently pull it out. And when it comes to reading the books or having them open for display, you don't want to open them 180 degrees wide. Rather, you want to have it less than that. Something very helpful for preventing books from opening so wide it's damaging to them is book sails in similar materials that will hold the book up at a specific angle. And when it comes to putting books back on the shelf, you want to make sure it's with books of similar size. That way, the pressure keeping the books in place is distributed evenly throughout rather than unequally, such as if you had books of varying sizes. In regards to what you don't want to do to a book, besides just forcing it open to 180 degrees, you don't want to use an acidic bookmark, a paper clip, or bending the corner of a page to bookmark it. Instead, use a buffered insert bookmark to prevent acidic damage, rusting damage, or damage to the pages itself. Additionally, you want to avoid using rubber bands, tape, glue, and leather dressing on books, as those can be very damaging to the materials.
I hope you found this video informative. If you enjoyed this video, let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends. Thank you. Have a good day.